Solo, a Star Wars story. The film is directed by Ron Howard and stars Alden Ehrenreich, Donald Glover, Woody Harrelson, and Emilia Clarke. It is the second standalone Star Wars film of the Star Wars cinematic universe. The film acts as an origin story for the character of Han Solo, which was originally played by Harrison Ford. The film depicts a much younger Han Solo, and we follow him as he learns to be a pilot, becomes a smuggler, meets Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian, and obtains the Millennium Falcon. Now, there was a lot of behind-the-scene drama surrounding this film. Originally meant to be directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, the pair was fired from the production during filming after Lucasfilm had some disagreements with the artistic choices that they were making. Apparently, the film was meant to be a much more funny, buddy heist film, and Lucasfilm simply felt that it wasn't the right tone for a Star Wars film. So Ron Howard was brought in to quote-unquote fix the film halfway through production. There was also a lot of backstage chatter about the actor who was playing Han Solo. Rumor had it that the studio had to bring in an acting coach to help Alden Ehrenreich during production because he was struggling so much with his character. So when the film premiered, expectations were very low. To no shock of anyone, the film premiered with mixed reactions from the fans. This was to be expected due to the previous film, The Last Jedi, being possibly the most divisive film of the entire franchise. Solo did end up being quite divisive itself, but not to the same extent. The Last Jedi's reaction ranged from "it's the greatest film of all time" to other people feeling that it was so bad that they could feel their childhood dying while they were watching it. Whereas with Solo, the reactions were more on the lines of people thinking that it was a great, fun, action-adventure film, and other people just feeling that it was a very disappointment next installment to the series. So I was interested to see this film and see where I fell on that spectrum. And how did I like it? It was fine. That's it. I mean, I don't feel like my life has changed now that I've seen it, but I had a good time. It's a fun movie. Good action sequences, some really nice, adorable moments, and great set design. I know that's a weird opinion to have, given that we live in a world where a film is either great or terrible, but I refuse to label this film as either because neither one of them is accurate. There are a few things about the film that legitimately surprised me by how good they were. First of all, props to Ron Howard. He actually directed a very cohesive film. It doesn't feel overblown, and it really feels like one solid film rather than two films that were put together. Which is really impressive considering that he came on so late into the process and had absolutely no preparation. He even did the film for free as a favor to Kathleen Kennedy, who's a really close friend of his. What a guy. I also really liked Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. He made really smart choices as an actor. He realized that the Han Solo we were watching in this film is not the Han Solo that we had in the previous films because he's much younger and hasn't been beaten down by the life of a criminal yet. So the actor didn't seem burdened by the need to do an impression of Harrison Ford, which would have been futile and ultimately inaccurate to the character. He had enough Harrison Ford quirks worked into the character that I knew who he was playing, but he was able to add a lot of his own youthful, more quirky, innocent personality to give us something more original and different. And I genuinely found him charming as Han Solo. Which sadly I cannot say about Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. Which is another shocking opinion I know, because based on all the reviews I've read, it seems like everyone's favorite part of the movie was Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. But for me, it seemed like he was doing the opposite of what Alden Ehrenreich did. Meaning that he seemed very heavily burdened by the impulse to simply just do an impression of Billy Dee Williams. It became very clear to me during some of the more heavier scenes where he was really struggling to maintain his impersonation. He also was a little over the top, and so for me his impersonation seemed a little bit more like a perpetual SNL skit than an actual character. I mean, he certainly did not ruin the film. I actually really enjoyed his impersonation. I'm just saying he didn't impress me as much as the actor who played Han Solo ended up doing, which was very surprising to me. Now, the film has its faults. It doesn't set up the character of Han Solo well to be the Han Solo that we meet in A New Hope, because by the end of this film, he's already a hero, so his arc in New Hope is a little confusing if you really take this film to heart. This film really doesn't feel like it has much of a soul either. A lot of the heavier moments, or what should have been heavier moments, don't really stick, and so they never really had much of an emotional impact with me. especially because all the characters seem to move on from those moments really quickly. So yeah, the film wasn't an emotional roller coaster, but it was nice. I had a good time. The majority of the performances were very well done, the visuals are great, and it had enough lighthearted moments to keep me smiling. I could totally see myself buying the DVD and putting it on with a couple of friends while throwing back a couple of beers for a good time. It's not amazing, but there are definitely a lot worse films out there, so I don't really understand why this film was as divided as it was. Well, I do. It's because it's off the heels of Last Jedi, and honestly speaking, I thought the divisiveness of that film was stupid too. And I thought this because... Ready for a really unpopular opinion? Okay, here we go. None of the new Star Wars films are really that great. I know, right? How dare I? But seriously, it's common knowledge that the prequels were terribly received. Rogue One, though arguably the best of the new films, is 40% fan service and 60% a really poorly paced film. The Last Jedi had terrible plot holes, and Rian Johnson made some really poor choices as far as time management and narrative structure. Though I do have to say that I am growing a personal fondness for some of the ways that he creatively subverted my expectations. I love it when films do that. Audiences loved The Force Awakens, but let's be real, after the prequels, audiences were just so happy to have a decent film that they were willing to forgive how safe and unoriginal the story was. The only risk that film took was with casting, which sadly is just a representation of the sad times that we live in, where the idea of a woman and an African-American man carrying a film is considered a risk. It's so sad. My point being that a subpar Star Wars film is nothing new. So the fact that people are getting so heated about this film, I think is more of a representation of the divisive times that we live in, rather than a representation of the film itself. And on a side note, I just want to say one thing. You don't have to like these films, but to the people out there that seem to think that they have the right to harass or threaten the directors, producers, or actors, stop. Just stop. I get it. You have no happiness in your life except for Star Wars, so when the Star Wars films are subpar, it hurts you on a deep and emotional level. But I hate to break it to you. Oh wait, no, I love to break it to you. The fact that you have no joy in your life is your fault. And you are blaming these films and these producers and these filmmakers because you don't want to admit that it's your fault. I love movies. Hell, I take hours of my time every week to make these little videos where I just talk about movies instead of hanging out with friends. And I do it all with the hope of just maybe getting a little bit of a monetary reward in the end. Seriously people, like and subscribe. Trying to get those ad deals. But even with that in mind, I have never felt the need to threaten or attack a filmmaker simply because I didn't like the movie, even if the film has some kind of attachment to my nostalgia as a child. So stop projecting your self-hate at the filmmakers and actors and do something good with your life. Try creating more joy in your life and maybe spreading joy to other people. Basically, what I'm saying is, stop working for the dark side. Become a Jedi. Sorry, I needed to get that off my chest. So in conclusion, Solo is a harmless, fun, lighthearted action-adventure film, which in the very least you can say is still better than all the prequels. So in the end, I'm going to give Solo, a Star Wars story, a 7 out of 10. Thank you all for watching. Please hit the like button if you like this review, and feel free to leave a suggestion in the comment section below of a film you'd like me to review in the future. Also folks, stay tuned, because for my next video I'm going to be trying something a little different and a little more fun, so I'm happy to introduce drunk film reviews. Look for it on this channel for when it premieres. Until then, see you all next time.